Contestant number 2, DJ Brereton. DJ Brereton, contestant number 2.
That was a timeless speech. In all honesty, it was an absolutely fantastic speech. Loved it so much. Our test speaker gave us a brilliant speech about time, basically. The use of repetition for that word alone, I have to say, was just brilliant. It was peppered through the first part of the speech, which just as he was finishing using that word constantly, you sat there and went, now it feels like it's getting too old. And then he let it die down. And then when you at least remember it, boom, there's time, not just said normally, but it'd say time with emphasis and power that would remind you again of this constant theme throughout his speech. In addition to that, he repeated a few key gestures that were absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, because of the Zoom connection, we couldn't see them brilliantly, but there was the moving from side to side, which was his use of a gesture to move his journey or his story along, which helped so much with the theme of what he was telling and allowed us to connect properly to how he was communicating to us. It was so awesome to hear that and see that used so well. I do have a slight recommendation, and while the gestures were awesome, I absolutely love them, there is a small tweak one might want to do. Now, luckily, you couldn't see a lot of what was going on down here because of where the screen was for our test speaker, but you could see every now and again the fingers just crest the camera. And I am a very, as you can tell with my gestures now, very much a vocal and emotional speaker, and that's what we do as Toastmasters. But when you use gestures too much, it detracts from the speech. Of what we saw, there were some absolutely fantastic ones, knocked it out of the park so well, but I would recommend be careful of an overuse. It can detract from the fantastic use of gestures, and it can detract from the meaning of the words when we're trying to pay attention to everything going on. I would also like to note that while the props were fantastic, they were not necessary. There wasn't enough of an oomph behind them to actually warrant them being in the speech. And while I recommend, if you want them in there, they're a great way to symbolize removing and changing oneself. It didn't really have that impact when I was listening to the speech. I would recommend keeping that in mind. My challenge to you is over the range of space. It felt very confined with the small movements from side to side. It didn't really feel like he was given a breadth of space to move. So my recommendation is to, my challenge is to pick an area that gives you the room to move, to use your gestures and your body language in such a way that you have a breadth of room and space to use close and further away. And it would then hopefully also elongate and show us the entirety of your torso, giving us a full picture. Thank you very much. I would recommend, fantastic repetition. I'd recommend careful with the gestures and might want to look at a change up of the venue. Awesome work, fantastic job.
Thank you very much, DJ.